everybody, and welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, where I just talk to cool people doing fun stuff and friends and talk about things that I want to talk about. And it's the eve of Christmas Eve. It is the night before is what we like to call it, with my friend Myles Jacob, who's joining me again today. Myles, we have had some epic night before parties. How did that tradition start?
We invented it. Come on. No, it started when my generation, our generation went off to college, and we all came home for the first time for a Christmas break and looking for a way to have friends get together that weren't family. And so everyone was going to be home. You can't do that on Christmas Eve because families are together, or Christmas. So he said, well, everyone will be home already, so let's do night before the night before. And we would get twisted up with our old friends for the first time in 4 months or whatever that we hadn't seen. And it just became a thing that we kept on doing it even, for years and years and years, even when, way past when we had stopped going to school and all that.
Yeah, and then there was our friends, Mary and Jim, who would they had a dinner a couple times.
Yep.
And then we would do the tamale party, which we did a couple times.
Yep. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a good excuse to do a non-family friends thing that still is sort of holiday based.
Was it always so? Kurt and I started doing the tamale thing when we had it, just because that's sort of easy and you can, have a pot of beans and set it up in advance. Was food ever involved when you first started it?
No, not really. It was just a drinking, smoking thing.
Right.
Yeah. It was fun because one of the reasons it was fun was that, at least with me and my two brothers, who, we're all within 3.5 years of each other, but we all had separate friends, groups of people, and all of the groups of people knew each other, but, we didn't hang specifically together. So this was a great chance for these 3 different groups of friends to all get together. And so it's pretty wild. Everyone was looking to sort of get their yayas out a little bit.
Right.
That was sort of a nice dynamic, that the 3 different groups, and it sort of spread from there. And, there were times when it just got crazy. I mean, there were a lot of people, more than, it's not like it's an invitation only kind of thing. Back in those days, we're just kids. And it was really, really fun. It made Christmas Eve a little bit of a challenge because we were just hung bad.
I remember night befores too, where we had kids and we would just bring our kids and they would watch movies and your kids would be holed up in your porch. And
Yep. Well, and it's funny as you watch the sort of the generations go, because the Christmas Eve thing is the thing that really has tied everything together for all of our families.
And do you want to talk about how that started? I feel like, because your mom started it with Kurt's mom, so I feel like I'd be speaking out of school.
So it really was Kurt's mom. Dolores so she decided there were a lot of young families on, within a block or two that were friends. The parents were friends. So, they were probably in their mid to late 30s, let's say, as parents. And we were, between 10 and 14 or something. And Dolores said, well, let's have a Swedish Christmas. None of us were particularly religious, so we weren't all going to midnight mass. Anyway, and so she said, let's have this Swedish Christmas sort of themed thing, and we'll get all these families that all have kids that are the same age. We'll all get together. And then she made Swedish meatballs and lefse and cucumber salad, and it was all very foreign to us. So most of these families had just moved to Minneapolis within, the previous year or two by coincidence. And, maybe that was one of the binds of why they knew each other in the first place. I don't know. So we'd all get together, and it was really fun. I mean, the parents were just having a wee of a time, and we were just kids. So it didn't matter to us. We were happy no matter what. And it just got its own legs. And so year after year, Dolores and her husband, Richard, Kurt's parents, they hosted it. And it was really fun. And as we got older, the kids, who are now teenagers and boys for the most part by chance, we would go down in the basement and get all screwed up and play ping pong in Kurt's basement. And I remember Kurt's dad, Richard, he'd have had a half a dozen drinks himself, and he'd come on down and have fun with the kids. And he'd walk down, and he says, I can smell that sweet smell of success. And it was great because instead of being busted, he was just having fun with us, which was really fun. Anyways.
Well, and the context was the 70s too.
Oh, it's the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Times are different, obviously, but yeah. Anyway, it was just really fun, and it kind of really became what Christmas was for all of these different families. There's probably 4 or 5 families at least to start, and the roster would change a little bit from time to time, but it was really fun for both of the generations. It was really, really fun. And that was Christmas Eve. And so that would just sort of get the holiday rolling. And it was great. And they kept on, the parents kept it going. And then Kurt's parents moved when Kurt graduated from high school, went to college. So Kurt's parents sold their house and they moved to 510 Groveland. So they weren't going to host the thing anymore. And so one of the other families had sort of a stately, beautiful house down the block. And so they hosted it for years and years and years after that. I mean, this has been going on for 50 years more.
Because I think this is the 51st year.
God, you feel old? I do.
Yeah. I came on the scene in the 80s, and it was, I remember, kind of a big deal because I was with Kurt, but we weren't married. And our family Christmas was Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. So I was like the first girl who had a significant other, and I had to tell my family, look, I'm going to do something on Christmas Eve with his family.
Oh, no.
Which was like heresy. I mean, my mom was mad for a year.
Yeah.
And I finally I was like, look, I'm going to do this. So the way I sort of managed it was I would go to my family's Christmas Eve early, like 4:00, and then go from there into the dinner.
Yeah.
With the Jacobs and the Johnsons and the Reeds.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I remember I was like, this is weird food. Because in the 80s, I was like a kid and I didn't appreciate anything about food. And I couldn't believe that someone in Minnesota was actually having a gathering of food and there was not a potato in sight.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was just like, what the heck? Like, potatoes are Swedish, aren't they? So very early on, like after a couple of years of basically just eating meatballs and your wife Sue's delicious almond rolls, I decided that I was going to contribute, and I asked Dolores's permission, and she had to ask your mom if I could bring potatoes. And I remember the first year I made like 1 pan of potatoes, and I think I just made like a scalloped potato, and everyone was crazy about them. Like I didn't even get any, they were gone.
Yeah.
And then I kept making them, and I would make 2 pans, and everybody likes potatoes. And somehow in the last handful of years, Dolores has sort of glommed on to the potatoes. And I've been cooking other things because we have the same dishes, but we kind of rotate sometimes who does them based on who's going to be there.
Yeah.
And Dolores has started to call them Janssen's Temptation.
Oh,
and she says it with this very affected, kind of funny way. And so all year long, when we talk about Christmas Eve and she brings up the delicious Janssen's Temptation, we just howl with laughter because it's a scalloped potato, but basically there's a can of Swedish anchovies in it, which gives it sort of an umami.
Wow.
So this
So that to this
year,
day, the whole business of what you were talking about of sort of being new to the scene, 30 years ago or whatever it is, but being new to the scene and wanting to contribute to the Christmas Eve party, Sue has enduring nightmares about that. That when she came on the scene, which is the late 70s, she asked, what could she do? And Dolores said, well, you can butter the lefse. And Sue was like, butter the lefse? What's lefse?
hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway, that whole business of getting included, it's like you're a freshman and the new guy, and there's funny stories about it. And then you get to graduate to making
Cucumbers.
the Christmas cookies, or cucumbers, right?
Because I know, like, Leah, your daughter, got the cucumbers one year, and then we had Ellie, and we were like, well, cucumbers. Turns out Ellie is probably a better cook than I am. And somehow she's now ended up with eggnog too, because the Reeds couldn't come last year. So Ellie is going to continue on at our house with the eggnog tradition. Do you want to just let's just go through the menu so people understand what is the actual food that we eat?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is supposedly a Swedish theme with all of my Swedish blood. But, so Swedish meatballs, right? Which are great. Even though I didn't know what they were when it all started, they're great.
Yeah, it's like a veal meatball.
And then cucumbers in sort of a real vinegary vinaigrette. What else? Oh, well, then there would be like pickled herring.
And the beets.
Or as Madeline Kahn would say, helwing.
What was in the beets? It was like diced beets with like a pink sauce.
Yeah, I actually really liked that, but it's a little different from every other day of the year. I don't know. Molly Reed would make that, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know specifically what was in that. It's a secret.
We would do artichokes that had butter and cream cheese.
Yeah.
And
Oh man, so good.
Can you talk about Nieves' dish?
The cauliflower?
Yes.
So that was, I think what she did was take cauliflower and then egg whites that were whipped. So kind of like you're making a
poblano or a relleno.
Yeah. But with cauliflower and then fried, and then put all into a casserole with sort of like tomato sauce and cheese and probably some cream and stuff. It was delicious.
Kurt had to make that one year because she was not feeling well, and it was hard.
Yeah, it's good. I haven't had that in a long time.
I know, and it's funny, like, because Nieves' heritage and your grandfather had spent a lot of time living in Mexico, so somehow that made it to the Swedish Christmas.
Right. That's right. And that's how Sue broke out of the, I don't want to butter lefse. She started making these almond rolls that her grandmother used to make, and they're really dangerously good. So that became her signature contribution to the whole thing. And now this year, it's all blown up because of the virus. So we're not doing that. So in our little tiny family, our bubble that we're not doing Christmas Eve, but we're going to have Christmas dinner. We're going to kind of do at least some of the Christmas Eve dinner on Christmas. So we're going to make Swedish meatballs, damn it. So that at least something goes forward. And we're going to do a variation on the cauliflower thing. And we're going to do the cucumbers. So and Sue's making her rolls. So we're keeping it going. We're keeping it going.
We are too. We're doing Christmas Eve. We're doing the Swedish meatballs. Dolores is making Janssen's Temptation. Ellie's making the cucumbers and the eggnog. And I think I'm going to make some beets, just
Yeah.
Going to
Keep
be
it
the
alive. Keep it alive. I'm already can't wait for next year when hopefully this crappiness is going to be over and we can get back to what we know.
yeah, and it should be super fun. So
Yeah.
that's going to be your Christmas Day dinner. So is Christmas Eve just going to be you and Sue?
Yeah. Doesn't that sound just sad?
A
I
little.
mean, it's fine, but geez, one more night instead of a special night.
Yeah. Are you going to make a special meal at least, or?
Stephanie, I make a special meal every night.
I know it's true. You do. What did you eat last night?
Oh, God. Come on, I'm getting old. Let's see. Oh, I had something called a cut of pork called pork collar, which I got from United Noodle Asian Market, which is sort of like pork shoulder. It's sort of a fatty cut of pork, which means it's good. And I marinated it in this Korean gochujang marinade and
Yeah.
then barbecued it. And then I made, oh, this is going to blow your mind. I made beet green raviolis, which is
Yum.
ravioli, and the filling is sort of sauteed beet greens and onions. You chop all up, ricotta cheese and Parmesan cheese. And then you use some of the water that you cooked the beets in ahead of time with butter and lemon juice as just sort of a real thin little sauce over it. Oh man, it was really, really good.
And the sauce had to be pink.
Yeah, it's just a little pink. Exactly. It's a Jean-Georges recipe, don't you know?
That sounds fancy. How'd you find it to go with Korean pork?
I have a Jean-Georges cookbook.
Okay. So I'm interested in that. I may have to post a link to that recipe in the show notes.
Yeah, it's it's not hard. I mean, if you've made ravioli, which isn't really hard if you do
Do you
it.
use wonton skins or do you make your own dough?
Yeah, well, okay. So, well, the best thing to do is make your own dough, but I didn't do that. Wonton skins work really well, like almost as good as yours. Last night I tried using Whole Foods has prepackaged like fresh lasagna.
Yep.
That
Like sheets.
Yeah, sheets. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to take those and I'll just cut them up and make, I'll use that from that part of things from a how it looks standpoint didn't work out as well. It was a thicker noodle than I want, and it's kind of made, theirs is kind of made with almost all semolina, so it's almost crumbly. So it wasn't real good at holding together. Whatever, it all worked out, but next time I'm not going to use that.
You're going back to the wonton skins.
Wonton skins, or make your own. Our granddaughter, our 7-year-old granddaughter, comes over on Thursdays because St. Paul public schools aren't in session. And we usually have a little project where we'll make something, cookies or whatever. And last week we made pasta, and it would, it's easy. It's 10 minutes, and you let your dough sit for half an hour, and then you can use it for whatever you want.
Do you have an extruder from your KitchenAid mixer?
I have the attachment, not the extruder, just the roller that uses the motor of the KitchenAid. And it's real simple. And with a 7-year-old, it's a really good participation little project. And so we've made raviolis before, we've made fettuccine and whatever. And she's a fussy eater, to say the least, but she loved the fresh pasta. You have it and then you have it for lunch.
Do you think that her making it makes her more intrigued to eat it?
Well, I sure wonder. It seems like that's something. And her fussy eating is an ongoing day-to-day grind for her parents.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's something to it. I don't know.
And the texture, I know a lot of little kids have texture issues.
Yeah, and I think that's something with her too. Anyways, these nice, fresh, slippery noodles she loved.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's that.
We are looking forward to celebrating with you on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun. Hopefully, after today's little blizzard, we're going to be okay.
Yep, we'll just sort of take it day by day and COVID worthy and all the other things.
Yeah,
Have you
I'm really
figured out
looking
your
forward to
menu?
it. No, I haven't tackled that. After Christmas is done, we'll figure out
Okay.
what we have. No, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Just holding up, and doesn't matter what happens outside.
Yeah, exactly. And just having some fun. We
Yeah.
did, just to share, Kurt and I went up to Ely, which is where we have our lake places, and
Yeah.
we did the winter solstice. So
Wow.
we cross country skied on the lake.
So there's snow up there now?
There is snow. It's probably about 5 inches on the lake.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's
Yeah.
fluffy still and nice.
That
The
must have
lake
been
is,
beautiful.
yeah, the lake is ice is set up very well.
Yeah.
And there was the night sky with the Saturn and the Jupiter. What are they calling it?
Oh,
The
yeah, the
star.
convergence.
Yeah. So we sat at
You
our
got
fire
your
pit
astronomer
outside,
on.
and Kurt got the gas can out, and we created a large fire and sat outside and had a couple drinks in the night sky in Ely. It was super beautiful.
That sounds pretty damn nice.
It was nice. It was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Proud of you
Well,
guys.
yeah. Well, good. Have a good Christmas, and
Yes.
we'll talk to you afterward.
Okay. Happy
All right.
holidays.
All right. Take
All right.
care.
Bye.
Bye.